Welcome to Catalyzing Innovation's podcast series, where exceptional global innovators across sectors share best practices to maximize creativity and practical secrets for good implementation. I'm thrilled to be interviewing Tucker Ford today, a partner at Smart Design, which in my mind is one of the very best product, service, and experience design consultancies globally. I've known Tucker for about 10 years and have to say, in all honesty, my respect and admiration for his insights, perspectives, and work just keeps growing and growing. Tucker is a pioneering design force who thrives on creating market-defining consumer experiences that tap into emerging technologies like his recent work with Gatorade. Smart has also done standout work for OXO, Hewlett-Packard, Nissan, Procter & Gamble, Under Armour, Samsung, and Tiffany. Tucker shares deep expertise in research and strategy with his team and clients to develop meaningful products and services and experiences. And he frequently speaks about design innovation and all over, and he writes for, or he's been quoted in Business Week, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Fast Company, Entrepreneur, and Surface. So Tucker, my first question for you is, can you describe for listeners the kind and range of work that Smart Design does, and a little bit about your background, how you got into this field, what you love about it, and the perspectives you bring to it, and what makes Smart Design different? So a little bit about Smart Design and a little bit about you.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. And thanks for inviting me to participate in this. It's been great collaborating with you for all these years. And it's really special to be here again, talking to you. So I think I'll start a little bit just talking about my background, because I think from my experience for people working in design and innovation, a lot of what brings them to this area in this field is what can make it what's interesting about what they can bring to the field. And I think, for me, when I was younger, I was always just a very curious kid and always interested in how things worked and why they worked, and, always asking the why. And I didn't really know sort of how that would turn into a job for me. But eventually I found my way through engineering and into industrial design. And I think, what was great about that for me was, I think, to be a designer, you really have to be an optimist. And I think that optimism is something that kind of guides you through how you make decisions. You kind of really have to believe that tomorrow is going to be better than today, because if you don't, then, you're creating products and services really for no reason. And so that optimism is what's really driven me through most of my career. But it's also evolved. I think also, while I love being a designer, I also realized that the business side of things is really important. And that's how I really found myself moving into the innovation space. And I think that, I remember one day sitting with a project team in a bay working on a project, and my team was saying, "Oh, this is the best concept, but the client's never going to go for it." And I was like, "Yeah, man, like the client, they don't want to take any risks. They're not interested in pushing the boundaries." And then I really realized that was our job, was to really frame up those ideas in a business context that made sense. And that's really how I started getting interested in the business side of design and the convergence of business and design. And I love that. And I love that ambiguity of those two things coming together. And I think that what we do is kind of a journey. And that journey, you don't really know where you're going to end up, and you have to be comfortable with that journey and realize you're going to find greatness along that journey. So that's kind of what drives me in what I do. And I think that how that connects in with Smart Design, I've been with Smart Design for many years, and, we're really a special agency in my mind. We really grew out of a deep understanding of human need and have been around for a long time, and founded over 40 years ago. And about 30 years ago, we helped co-found the kitchen gadget brand called OXO. And that was really when we helped pioneer a lot of the fundamental and founding principles of inclusive design. And that really became a lot of the DNA that drives the firm to this day. And so even though we design all kinds of products and services across many different sectors and categories, that focus on human and human being and how people make choices and how they live their lives and what they're looking for has remained sort of constant. But then the world around those people have changed. And that's how we've evolved as an agency over this long period of time.
Super, great. So in some ways, innovation is such a broad and overused term. How do you define innovation relative to the type of work that Smart Design does with clients and what clients are looking for to really transform their businesses?
Yeah, I mean, innovation is a broad term, and there's a whole world of innovation that I don't even touch around, process innovation, a lot of the back end services that businesses provide that can create real competitive advantages for companies and organizations. And so that type of innovation is important, but that's not what we do at Smart Design or what I focus on. We're really in the world of helping organizations identify, design, and build new products and services that are going to really deliver brand or business growth. So much more on that front end consumer and customer experience, and how can we deliver innovative solutions in that area. And so that's really where we focus. And I think, even within that world, it's a big world. And, within that world, a lot of our projects, would typically fall into 4 different types of work, which we really focus on. Sometimes it's what I call kind of creating the next version, this kind of version 2.0. So a company that's got, they've got great products and their heads down, really focused on, staying true to their product lines and their brands, but they lack the resources or that outside human perspective to really think about what's next for them and how they can really, become or maintain category leadership. And so we work with a lot of companies who are really trying to either maintain or really jump in their category leadership, create that new version 2.0 of whatever they're doing, and grow that way. And then another area where we're working a lot is a lot of, and we see this a lot in large tech companies we work with, like, Google or Spotify, but they have a lot of great capabilities in-house, but they lack expertise to link those together in a meaningful way for their end products and services. So they may have great research teams, they may have great kind of product teams, and they may have great design teams, but they really don't have anyone who's looking across all 3 of those functions in a really collaborative and integrated fashion to help really create a more meaningful products and growth strategy for them. And that's an area where, our multidisciplinary capabilities really shine through. And then another area where we focus a lot of time is on what we call ecosystem growth. So a lot of companies that are mature, they're strong at what they're doing, but they need to find new ways to grow, new adjacencies, or new products and services to wrap around their core business. And that's really looking at opportunities in new technologies or new markets or new channels, or as I said, new services. And then I think the other area, just given our heritage for us, is we have some areas of really deep expertise and specializations where we can really solve some specific problems for our clients. And things like ergonomics and usability, things like sustainability and how can companies really meet some of their longer term sustainability objectives. And then we have a very strong emerging technology team, which is really looking at a lot of what's happening on the technology side of things and how that might apply to different brands and businesses. So that gives a little bit of a flavor of some of the type of work we're working within innovation.
No, that's great. And it sounds like you're really looking for innovations that are going to have a big impact on the business. One of the things I wonder, because innovation is such a big deal, does everybody need to be innovating all the time? I think it's a certain mindset, but does toilet paper keep needing to be, innovating? Do light bulbs keep having to innovate? Is it important for every firm in every industry to constantly be innovating?
I don't think it's in every company's DNA. And as I said, there are other types of innovation. I mean, I think that if you can innovate on the back end part of your business to increase your margins, and there's other things that companies can do in more commoditized sectors. But I do think that and also you can innovate through acquisition, which is what a lot of companies do, is take out the risk and just acquire. But I think that companies that really want to grow and maintain market leadership with their customers, and who believe that that customer-focused innovation is kind of synonymous with who they are as a company. I think that they need to continue to innovate all the time. And I think that consumers love companies that are innovative. I mean, who doesn't want their brand or their companies that they're buying products and services from to be considered innovative? And I think in the short term, they get that kind of brand halo, and in the long term, they should be able to maintain sustained growth and competitive advantage. So, but yeah, I think it's really important. And I think one of the challenges we see working with companies is that a lot of times executive leadership teams are not always focused on investing in innovation. And so, in fact, Gartner had done a study recently asking CEOs about some of their top priorities. And, for me and someone who loves innovation, it was a little disheartening to see that innovation was number 10 out of 11, right next to risk management, which is not one of my favorite things. And so, a lot of CEOs and leadership teams are not actively thinking about innovation at the level that I believe that they should be. And I think that when companies do invest in innovation, they get much broader returns than just new products and services that can really extend the business impact. And I think that that's something critical for companies to be thinking about.
Okay, great. So what are some of the characteristics you've observed in the firms who are most successful at innovating that others can emulate? And that can have to do with goal setting, innovation teams, the way they ideate, just anything that you've observed that you think are keys to success.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, innovation in some ways can be really scary for companies. So, it can be expensive. There's always going to be risk involved. And a lot of times the exact result or the end state is unknown. And so I think that, imagine going to your CEO or even your CFO and saying, hey, I need a bunch of money. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to get for that money. And it may not even work, and I think that those are three things that a lot of businesses try hard to avoid. But as I was saying before, I don't think for many businesses, I don't think not innovating is an option either. And so, I think that there are some things that companies need to be thinking about when they want to innovate. And what we see with success is that one of the things that I think hinders innovation is companies that kind of overthink it and just get paralyzed by thinking about where and what they should do to innovate instead of actually just getting started. And so companies that are more willing to start quick with hypotheses and kind of just dig into it, even if it may not be exactly right, I think that they're going to get more value and they're going to get momentum. And so, spending a year thinking about where you should innovate, those are things that can get in the way of actually making progress. I think one of the other things that we see a lot that leads to successful innovation within organizations is companies that are really willing to prototype and pilot quickly. So, I think a lot of ideas, products, services, different types of new business models, they look really good on paper for a long time and they can look good on paper forever. But the sooner that you can prototype that idea and get it off of paper and into some real form, I think you really learn a lot, and that's critical. And I think that learning happens in three ways. I think that, right away you can learn if an idea is good or bad. If it's good, then that's great. You can learn about it, you can refine it, you can move it forward. If it's bad, you might learn about why it's bad, and that can inform something else. And also, just trying new ideas and prototyping them, they inspire other ideas. And I think that level of inspiration is really important in that process. So, all of our clients who are willing to prototype early and try things out early, they tend to be more successful in innovation. And then I think the last thing that I think is really important in the process that I see with companies to be successful is that they don't just make one big innovation bet and put all of their eggs in one basket, because there is going to be risk in what we're doing. And so using more of an innovation ingredient approach, where you're kind of looking at many different options and different recipes of how you could turn those ingredients into viable products and services, that tends to be more successful because you can more dynamically react to successes and failures versus sort of making one huge bet and then having it not work out in the end, which really, that'll really shut down innovation within any large organization.
Mm-hmm. So do you think there are some firms that can innovate by themselves, or do they always need to bring in design firms to help them? And what's the value add from engaging outside experts, and at what stage should they be brought in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously partial to the value of outside experts because that's what I've built my career on, and I do believe that outside experts like Smart Design do offer a fresh perspective, and really a lot of what we offer too is just really well-tuned, kind of cutting-edge methodologies, tightly integrated teams that kind of take a lot of the the inefficiencies out of the process, and I think also. The other assets of an outside partner is that they're working across many different sectors at the same time. And so they can bring a kind of a broader perspective to a business or organization about the patterns that they're seeing and how they might be interconnected across different sectors. And then the other thing is just, we can generally move much faster because our teams are fully committed. And, we're really focused on one thing, is that it's just pushing innovation. We're not getting distracted by some of the other things that are coming up within the business. But that being said, as much as I believe in outside teams, I also don't believe that a team from Smart Design or another agency can do it on their own. And I do think that all of the successful journeys we've had through innovation with our clients is because we've had a really strong partner or set of partners on the client side. And so, those people really represent internal knowledge. They advocate for the support that we need from different business units and functions. And that's, without that, there's no way to kind of bring innovative ideas back into the business if you don't have those client-side partnerships.
So just building on that, what would you say are the secrets of great client design firm collaborations? What in your mind, what's a good client? Do they challenge you? Are they 50-50 partner? What's kind of the balance and how to work together?
Yeah, I think, one of the first things is really caring and participating and being invested in the process. So I think that I believe that it needs to be a totally open process where clients can participate in the process where they have time and where they can, because at some point, tough decisions have to be made as we go through this process, and having clients who've seen things firsthand, believe in the work, understand the work, and can really socialize it to leadership or decision makers, they really guarantee a level of success that we're looking for. So just that level of participation is critical. And then I think trust and transparency. So I think, there's a lot of different things that are happening with many businesses. They're constantly reorganizing. They've got different strategies. They've got conflicting priorities. Obviously, securing funding can be a challenge. And so I think the more that we're aware of all of those dynamics that are happening within an organization through them being more transparent and sharing these things that are happening, the better we can tailor the work that we're doing to be most successful for them. And so we've seen that companies that are more open and really want to succeed together, we have a higher chance of success. And then the third area is just, I think, more consistent client leadership. So I think, everyone loves fast innovation, but I think from experience, it takes time, and it takes much longer than many people kind of want to acknowledge, or even if they've been through it, that they remember. People will think that Nespresso was a hit overnight when it took 11 years to find the right market fit, or even iTunes and iPod, the same type of thing. These things take time. So I think that that's an important thing to consider, is leadership. And a lot of times strong, innovative client-side leaders get promoted or moved to other parts of the business that are often on fire. And then that kind of distracts from the innovation process and can be a distraction for being successful with innovation.
Mm-hmm. So, Tucker, I had interviewed you for the article I did about how brainstorming and the innovation process has changed since COVID came, because we're not innovating in teams anymore. It used to be that physical proximity, being in the same room, sharing energy, was really an important dynamic of brainstorming and innovating. But from your perspective, this is a two-part question. How has the innovation process changed since COVID? And also, how has COVID changed the types of innovations that companies are now focusing on? Because everybody's talking about, how there's been an even greater acceleration of the move to digital. But I'm just curious if you've seen the focus of what people want from their businesses has changed.
Yeah, it's been, it's obviously been a crazy time for everyone. And if you told me 10 months ago that, we would be successfully innovating, through remote collaboration and with all of our clients during this time period, I would have thought you were crazy. But I think that what's happened during COVID has changed a lot of parts of the innovation process, but with that has kind of opened up new opportunities. And I think that of course, there's been massive disruption on consumer behaviors and what people are doing and what they care about. And so that's been a whole new world for us to understand about how these behaviors are changing, what parts of these behaviors are going to be kind of new, which are new, are going to be kind of continuing into the post-COVID world, and what things are just temporary, and what things may never come back. And so we have to kind of really be thinking about the way we forecast trends in a way that we've never had to do before. The other piece is just, a lot of the work that we do is based on a lot of in-depth, in-person primary research. And of course, that's just not possible right now. So we've had to evolve a lot of the remote research tools that we already were working on, but really be more creative about how we're extracting insights using different types of technology. And then and the other thing too is, we do a fair amount of physical product development and design work. And of course, that's more challenging in a remote scenario where we're trying to get together and actually feel things in the hand or debug things. And so our workshop has still been running, but that does slow down the physical innovation process a little bit.
Okay. So how do you see innovation changing or evolving in an increasingly digital techie world? And what major technologies do you see as offering the greatest opportunities for firms going forward? Everybody's looking at AI from lots of different perspectives and helping in the product development process. In some cases, blockchain. I don't know if quantum computing is affecting you, but that's going to be another thing expanding on the horizon. I know you've been very focused on new business models and ecosystems. Other things like crowdsourcing, consumer-generated ideas. Are there anything involving digitization and technology that you see as really very, very attractive going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first question around just how has it changed in this really tech and digital focused world? I mean, I think that, one of the things that we see is a lot of business leaders kind of their first instinct is to say, hey, we need an app, and we just got to make an app. And there's a lot of focus on creating this app. But I think that if you ask a consumer, they'll say the last thing that they want is another app. And so it creates an interesting tension where, I think that digital will be likely be part of many of the solutions that are required as we go through an innovation process, but it's rarely the only solution. And I think a lot of organizations, overinvest in throwing all of their dollars into, say, an app and miss some easier or other ways to be innovative and still meet their objectives. And so I think that, you might need an app, but you'll definitely need more than an app. And so I think that one of the things that we focus on is being more broad and where we're looking for solutions and acknowledge that the digital will be part of the solution, but it's not the only part of the solution. And I think another thing that happens with kind of this tech and digital world is, I think success and innovation can come very, very quickly for some organizations, but it can also, you can also kind of lose it very quickly. So it's kind of easy come, easy go. And so I think that if companies do find quick success, they need to almost double down on creating new products and services off of that success to maintain relevance, because I do think kind of as steep as your curve is up, it can be that steep on the way down. And so it's something that companies need to think about as they pursue more digital focused innovation opportunities. But when it comes to actual technologies, what were some of the ones that you mentioned again, Michelle?
Okay, artificial intelligence, blockchain, quantum computing, new business models and ecosystems. And I know you're very focused on that, but also crowdsourcing, consumer generated ideas.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, these seem to be areas that are growing.
Yeah, I think that, on the technology side, there's two ways to look at it. There's kind of how is technology enabling our process, and then how, is technology enabling new kind of services and experiences for consumers. And I think on the process side, I think we are seeing tools like AI and different types of machine learning tools that can help us process kind of research data in new ways and uncover patterns and insights that I think traditional qual and quant methods wouldn't have traditionally uncovered. And I don't think it replaces those, but it kind of creates another angle or trajectory into insights, which I think is really, really valuable. And so we're investing in developing those skills and capabilities to be able to use those tools. And it's very effective when we're working with larger data sets, and where we're really just trying to see connections that you wouldn't see through kind of typical rational, analysis. When it comes to technology that's driving more consumer from front-end experiences, I do think that there's some really interesting things that are happening. And I think that, personalization is something that I believe will be a major trend moving forward for the next 5 years. And there's a lot of technology that's emerging that allows us to deliver more personalized products and services. Things around, being able to capture people's preferences, more diagnostics of how your body works and what it needs, and then different types of tracking technologies. And so I think that those things will come together in a way that'll be very interesting in the future. So for example, there's a lot of interesting diagnostic technologies coming online that allow you to understand how your body works uniquely compared to other people's bodies. And with that information, you can maybe better tailor your nutrition or some of your other habits. And then as far as tracking goes, there's a lot of interesting new Internet of Things and image processing and image capture and machine learning technologies, which are allowing us to really capture people's behaviors and choices in new ways and start to make connections between different patterns of what's driving those behaviors. And a lot of those things traditionally weren't trackable. And so that creates other opportunities for insights that can help people make better decisions. And then I also do think that there's some other fundamental technologies that you mentioned, which I think they may not directly kind of deliver front-end new experiences, but they're going to improve the back-end infrastructure that's going to allow us to deliver those experiences. So things like 5G and blockchain, they'll start to reduce some of the friction and barriers that I think we've seen in the past few years around, getting, good broadband access or internet access anywhere you are. And then things like blockchain will help us with kind of keeping everything secure and decentralized and making sure that as we share more of our personal data, that we have more control over it. And I think that those two things will really help from a structural level to really deliver innovative products and services to people.
There was an example that you shared with me for the Forbes article. I believe it was involving AI and blockchain and big data and also open data from cities, where you were redesigning bike lanes, I believe, in terms of understanding traffic patterns, where accidents happened, et cetera, with interesting visualization tools. Is that something you'd like to just share a little bit about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that was a project that our technology team took on through using open source data of accidents that are bike accidents in different cities, and really trying to take an unbiased view at some of the correlations between where accidents are happening and why, and then looking at 3 different cities, New York, Boston, and San Francisco, and starting to see what each city seemed to be doing differently, that then correlated to fewer accidents and these different kind of traffic layouts and traffic patterns and structural setups. And I think that some of the things that we found were not what you would expect, where sometimes when you've looked at creating a more distinct and separated bike lane, a lot of times that made the drivers less aware of what was happening in that bike lane, and there tended to be more accidents. And so some of the cities that had what seems counterintuitive, some more blended approaches around how they were handling bikes and cars, tended to actually have improved safety records when it came to bike accidents. So just an interesting story about how looking at data with in some ways an unbiased way. I mean, AI always has some of its own biases, but they're different biases than what you might find in traditional qualitative or quantitative research.
Great, that's super. So given how much technology there is out there, if you're a client, how do you keep up with what's going on? There's an infinite number of places to check, people to listen to. Do you have any suggestions? And I'm sure it depends if you're a small startup focused on a very specific industry that may not be that techy versus something that's more tech oriented and larger. But are there any ways that a client can just in general try and keep up with technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think companies need to keep a close eye on technologies, and they need to invest time and resources in understanding what those technologies could do for their businesses and what they might unlock. And they need to focus on that versus just jumping on every new tech trend or fad. And I think that having someone whose job it is within an organization, and if it's a large organization, it might be a team. If it's a small organization, it might be just part of someone's time. But really kind of someone who's really scouting for emerging technologies and and looking for what might work for them. And that includes going to trade shows and I think, following different technology papers and blogs and publications. But I also think that, it takes a lot of time for companies to successfully, commercialize emerging technologies, unless that's your core business. And so I think that, another thing that I think is important for companies is to be careful about where they invest, and instead of, basically just adopting new technologies wholeheartedly as they come online, we typically recommend using partnerships or collaborations, either with, it could be even with competitors or with other types of organizations that might have a stronger interest in that technology, as a way to mitigate risk and allow you to try it and see how it works for your particular sector or your consumer or your business before sort of moving into larger scale technology investments. And so I think that level of partnerships is really important. And I think it's becoming more and more important as technology is getting more and more complex. And it's more often kind of a network of people working together to deliver these advanced technology experiences.
Okay, that's super. So thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time. I always learn so much from you. Are there any just key takeaways, just a couple pearls of wisdom for companies about how they can innovate better, smarter, what they should really be focusing on? We've talked about so many different things, but what are maybe the top couple of things you think they should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really top of mind for me is thinking about what's happened with COVID over the past 10 months. And obviously it's been a challenging health crisis across the world. But as you look to the future, and I'm an optimist, like I said, and my eyes are always on, how next year is going to be better. What COVID has done to consumer behavior has, created a level of behavior change that's cross culture, cross age, cross region, really global behavior change that I don't think kind of like the modern world has ever seen before. And I think that will really change the innovation opportunities that businesses have in the future. And I think that if you were a business that, due to your sector or the services you provided, struggled during the period of COVID, I think that there's huge opportunities to reinvent yourself and take advantage of these massive changes in behavior. And then I think if you were organizations that, had success during COVID because of the sector or what you offered, I think that success, could be short-lived, and you need to be thinking about where, those behaviors are going to go in the future. And so I think it's, a lot of innovation can take time because people need to change behaviors over time. And I think that we're coming out of a period where people are going to be more receptive to new products and services because of what we've just gone through. And I think that's what makes it a very exciting time to think about the future.
Super. Oh, this was really wonderful. And for anybody interested in learning more about Tucker and Smart Design's work, you can visit their website at www.smartdesignworldwide.com. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle.